morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Be sure to tell us what you're drinking this morning, where you're checking in from. Get your questions in. Those are already rolling in. We'll get to those a little bit later. But as Rob Enfield says, once again, today, 73 days away from kickoff in Columbus. So tell us who your favorite number 73 is. Bobby, I know you got a pair of 73s.
Oh, there's more than a pair. I mean, Sean Rogers, obviously, who's been on this show before, as well as Jonathan Scott, a young man out of Dallas. Carter, played a long time in the NFL. Going way back to my dad's time, Dyron Talbert ended up playing in the NFL for the Redskins. So there's quite a few. Of course, right now, the starting right tackle for the Longhorns to be number 73. That's Brandon Baker out of Mater Dei over in Southern California. So look, there's been some good 73s through the years, I think, at the University of Texas, no doubt.
I was going to say on Jonathan Scott, for those that don't remember his recruitment, I know Bobby does. That was a really big win for Matt Brown at the time, because that kid was actually a Florida lean. And Mac had to kind of come from behind to win out for Jonathan Scott. There was a point in time there where that one was kind of iffy, and obviously recruiting was different then, but Mac, that was a big win for him, because that was Dallas Carter. Bruce Chambers was hired to help Texas in DFW, and Jonathan Scott at the time was a 5-star offensive tackle and a must-get recruit. And same class with Michael Huff, Derek Johnson, Quan Cosby, Cedric Benson. That class had some good returns. That was Will Allen, multiple starters on national championship teams, Cedric Griffin. There was a lot of starters on a national championship team. There were 7 offensive linemen in that class. Brian Carter.
So look, I'll just remember this. There were 3 blue chip guys Mac got out of Dallas on the offensive line over a 5-year period that were true blue chips. One of them was Derek Dockery out of Lakeview Centennial, big offensive line, played a long time in the NFL. 2 was Jonathan Scott, and 3 was Justin Blaylock.
Yeah.
And they were all leaning elsewhere prior to committing to Texas.
Yeah.
Speaking of recruiting, Jerry Hamilton, I think that you have some news that the Longhorn fans may take a little ill, but KJ Edwards, a running back out of Carthage, give folks the latest, because this happened yesterday afternoon.
Committed Texas A&M. A&M's they're coming after it, and we'll see how Texas responds this weekend. I think we have the weekend's official visitors, Blake, which we'll go to.
Yep. Let me bring that up right now for you. There you go.
All right, so this weekend, about Dia Bell, we'll get into Dia a little bit later in the show. He, according to the national reports, took home day 1 of Elite 11. If you like on-air quarterback competitions, not my thing. The best thing about Elite 11 is the part you don't see those guys in the classroom. But Dia Bell will be in this weekend. Caden Finley, son of Jermichael Finley, will be in this weekend. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot there for Notre Dame. Chris Stewart obviously will be in this weekend. His pops comes on our show a lot. Caden Prothrow, Georgia lean over Florida, more than likely to tight end for Bowden, Georgia, on the Georgia-Alabama border there, kind of west of Manchester, where Justice Terry's from. Kiwi Brown, which may be the most interesting name this weekend, because his dad, Travis Brown, is a former UFC fighter, and his stepmom's Ronda Rousey. Better bring your A game there. Nicholas Robertson, Max Wright commitments. John Turntine, is A&M going to beat Texas on another head-to-head? We'll see. Grayson McHugh, I don't think is going to make the visit. He'll commit to Notre Dame. Kendall Gurville, Texas leads there. That's a big recruitment out of Fort Myers, Florida. Dalton Sohn's going to be at Florida midweek. Texas and Georgia are fighting to see who gets that weekend visit. Luke Wafel coming in. I think he likes Texas more than people nationally may think he does. Penn State obviously is the comp where his brother played. Richard Wesley, talked to his guy earlier this week. He's coming in. That recruitment will expected to go into the fall. Trenton Henderson's a huge one. I think one of the top 10 prospects in the country that I've seen. I was part of his spring jamboree. I mean, he's a lay down 5-star prospect. He's a dude's dude now. I think Florida's the team that beat Auburn, LSU, Michigan also in it. Kosiak Paula, Texas should be the team to beat there. Calvin Thomas, we'll see if he still makes it in. Jermaine Bishop are listed as a DB, but we're going to start listing him as a wide receiver or DB. And I think there's a growing chance he plays wide receiver. Paris Melvin, we list as an athlete, but I think those just kind of got flipped. But Paris Melvin will play defensive back. And I think going into this weekend, Texas in a pretty good spot there.
There you go. Good stuff.
Jerry, what do you make of the KJ Edwards commitment to A&M overall? I mean, I think that's what we kind of need to talk about, because I think I see some sky is falling ideas because Roseboro and Edwards on consecutive days commit to A&M over Texas in both instances. What do you read into it at this point? Can people, like, I think people read too much into this, because I look back at last year at this time, and DeCorian Moore goes to Oregon, and Josiah Sharma goes to Oregon, I can't even remember where he went. And Myron Charles goes to Florida State, and Texas is without a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Texas has always done this under Steve Sarkisian in the summer. They haven't gone all in during the summer. They wait until later in the year. But at the same time, it's some of your top prospects apparently off the board, and maybe some other guys leaning elsewhere now. Is this just the way Texas recruits? Are there some complicating factors right now, including Aggie NIL, or whatever you want to call it at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, look, Texas has NIL too, and USC does. But my thing with this, and we've talked about this, who's finding loopholes around the House settlement? Because those who are and are aggressive with it are going to win, in my opinion, right now. That's what I have to say. I mean, look, there's loopholes in everything. Who's going to find the loopholes and who is going to make it happen? And those that are going to be the winners in June and July.
Or they're betting on the rules changing.
Correct.
Again.
Correct.
It doesn't have to just be a loophole. It could be, we think, and this is the part do I think the House settlement's going to be the rule of law in 6 months? I don't. I'm just going to be frank. There's going to be people poking holes in that right and left. So we'll see what it all means. Ultimately, they've got to. The thing about it is, they've got to deny someone at Deloitte before they start getting some real issues with the House settlement. So that may take longer than 6 months. I don't know.
Yeah. By the way, there's a lot of people saying what's going to happen at running back. Look, that's one answer I don't have. I mean, unless Texas upsets Bama for Xavier Crowell, you're looking at no running back heading into the season in this class.
Hey, one thing I want to say about Xavier Crowell, apparently he goes by EJ.
Yes,
he's Xavier Crowell Jr. So just wanted to mention that. That's the running back out of Jackson, Alabama.
All right, Bobby, before we move on, and we still got plenty more to talk about, can you tell everyone about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
I sure can. Adam and the group over at Lowy Law Firm have been helping injured Texans for more than 20 years now. Reach out to them at loweylawfirm.com. If you've been injured in a truck wreck, car wreck, automobile accident of any kind, make sure you check out Adam at loweylawfirm.com, be it a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident, 18-wheeler, or ATV. Give Adam and his group a shout, loweylawfirm.com.
I'm going to answer a couple of these. Joshua Joe asks, what about Derek Cooper? Hasn't set up an OV. Mari Latimer is going to Wisconsin unless Georgia takes him this weekend, in my opinion.
Those are running backs from South Florida and Atlanta area, respectively.
All right. Well, the next thing we're going to talk about this morning, guys, Athlon Sports came out with their top 25 for the.
By the way, I want to say we got recruiting questions started. We're going to come back around to those as well.
Definitely so. But no, they came out with a preseason top 25, and I actually got it in a list here. We're going to look at 1 through 10 first, and they wrote very long pieces about them, but I summarized that in about 1 to 2 sentences. So we'll start here. Texas, guys, is their number 1 going into the season, followed by Penn State, Ohio State, Georgia, and then Clemson at 5, and then Notre Dame, LSU, Alabama, Oregon, and Miami close out your top 10. Your thoughts?
My initial thought is, look, it kind of goes to what we're saying. That first weekend, Texas, Ohio State, Clemson, LSU play. I mean, that is just huge to start. Two of those marquee games on the first weekend of the season could be a lot of fun. Miami's overrated at 10 for me. Again, I say the same things. Look at how many first-year or new starting quarterbacks at these teams. I mean, Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Alabama, Oregon, Miami. Even though Carson Beck's played, I'm talking first-year starter or new starting quarterback. That's 8 of top 10. Carson Beck's coming off of UCL surgery, so we'll see where he's at. But is he going to be better than Cam Ward for them? If he's not, I don't know.
I don't know what Miami's going to do in this group. I think that Clemson, LSU, Texas, Ohio State, that first weekend, those will be differentiators that will probably carry both of the two winners in the top rankings for the first 4 to 5 weeks of the season. So if Clemson beats LSU and if Texas wins or loses against Ohio State, those winners of those two games, I bet, are ranked in the top 5 for the first 5 weeks of the year, clearly. And so that'll kind of define the early season rankings. What I would say here that I think is, where's the Big 12? Does the Big 12 exist anymore? I mean, there's not a single Big 12 team in there. There is, the ACC has 2 with Clemson and Miami, but also Notre Dame plays a quasi ACC schedule. It's the college football has just dramatically changed. And when you see a list like this, you get a feel for that. Get a real feel for it.
What do we have the 11 through 25?
I was about to say, let me bring up 11 through 25 right here. For those listening, Florida, South Carolina, Kansas State, Arizona State, there's your Big 12, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Ole Miss, Texas A&M at 19, Oklahoma at 20, followed by Tennessee, Texas Tech, Iowa State, SMU, and then Boise State rounds out the top 25.
If Boise State finishes in the top 25 after losing Ashton Jenkins, I'll be very surprised.
Hey, let me ask you this, Jerry, and this is talking about Oklahoma here. I was watching something with Diego Pavia yesterday. Apparently, he was offered $4 to $4.5 million a year to transfer to another SEC school.
Yeah.
Now, what SEC school needed a quarterback last?
Tennessee.
No, they didn't need him until
Oklahoma.
Summer. Oklahoma, Auburn could have been that team.
A&M.
He beat Auburn.
A&M.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Lucky maybe, but they're not going to spend that much on a quarterback. But the whole Pavia thing brought me back to Oklahoma. Do you think John Mateer is as good or better than Diego Pavia?
I think he's better than Pavia.
As a thrower or as a quarterback?
As a thrower, for sure.
Okay.
As a quarterback, here's the one thing that he's going to have to prove, and I'm not saying he's not. Pavia has already proven through an SEC schedule that he could take the physical pounding and get up time and time again. And if Oklahoma tries to run John Mateer 185 times next year, then he's going to have to prove he can get up from the pounding. Because Pavia is, I call him a UFC fighter playing quarterback, and that's a compliment to him, by the way. He is that tough of a guy. I mean, that guy he took some serious smacks last year. Mateer's got to prove he can do that.
Did OU get a better quarterback than Diego Pavia? In total, what do you think?
I think so. I think they did. Yes.
I'm debatable on that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you. You don't beat Alabama if you're Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happens once a generation.
No,
every 10 years, but a whole generation.
That was a
like
first.
Rice beating Texas once every 30 years.
Yeah. That's a great point. I know we got Tony Hills, but this is a great point by SD. Pavia was the perfect 90s Nebraska quarterback. 1,000%. Tommy Frazier would agree with that.
I wouldn't want to play Nebraska if he back in the day.
No.
If he was quarterback. Because it would have been, it would have been 60 minutes of getting your skull drawn. Yeah. Man, just not good. All right, let's talk to Tony Hills.
Let's bring him in. Oh, maybe. There we go. Good morning, Tony.
Tony, I got the first question. Today's 73 days from the start of the season, and that's obviously your former teammate, Jonathan Scott. You came in and played. You were in your development behind him, and then you came in and played that same spot. What do you remember about Jonathan Scott as a player? So we can kind of celebrate 73 who won a national title.
Hey, listen, that's a great question. But before I answer that question, you know, I got to say what's up to my man Blake, bro. Listen, Blake, I was sitting up here and I'm smiling, man, because you remind me of that old school soulful DJ that used to come on Magic 102 in Houston, man. You make me feel good inside, Blake. So I just wanted to tell you that, man.
I appreciate that, Tony. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, man. This is Texas. This is coffee and football. This is OTF, man. We got the people in the chat. You know what this represents? You know what Texas football is? I'm going to tell you what it is, man. It's where the horns up. Always throwing the horns up. So it's the place you come where the horns are up, the rivals are down, and the episodes hit harder than the SEC linebacker. Let's go. This is what I'm going to tell you about my man, Jay Scott, man. That dude, to me, will forever be a legend. To me personally, right? You're talking about when I came in, there was not a true roadmap. You know, it was like, okay, he's a really good tight end, but we don't know, based off the injury where he's going to project. And they came and they sat me down and they said, listen, you can be a very good tight end or you can be a damn good tackle. You make the decision. So for me, I said simply, all right, well, which one going to get me on the field faster? Because I had a vision. You know what I mean? There was no NIL money, Bob. You understand me? So I'm trying to get there. And they said, move the position. I said, all right, cool. It was, of course, Coach McQuarter, and shout out to Coach Mack, man, and Mama Hogg, man. They did an amazing job with me. But you guys know, like I know, like when you work with particular individuals, you're around them more than you're going to be around the coaches. And so he brought me along. He showed me what the position was about. Most importantly, he showed me what the position was about at this university, how to put my hands, where to put my hands, why I'm getting beat, why I won, how to watch film, what am I looking for to watch film. This dude he raised me in the position. And so for me, obviously, you know about Ray Scott and the pedigree that Jay comes from. You know, Ray played in the NFL, RIP to the legend. And so he had that knowledge. So I got the collegiate knowledge from one of the best tackles to ever play at the University of Texas. I got the professional knowledge through him from his dad, right? Understanding how to play the position. And then here's where things come full circle. A few years later in the pros, Jay Scott and I were able to play side by side together in the National Football League, right? And went to a Super Bowl together. So and came back to Texas to play in the Super Bowl. So when you talk about, just who he is as an individual, he's a giver. When you talk about who he was as an athlete, it was a dominant force, and it showed in this play. And so, man, I'm appreciative of him because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to take me in, and I'm so appreciative that he did. And hopefully I made him proud.
Hey, Tony, Longhorns suffered a recruiting setback of sorts yesterday. A.J. Edwards, running back out of Carthage, committed to Texas A&M. He was one of the guys that Texas had been targeting at running back. I wrote this morning on Texas Football something that Mac Brown told me almost 27, 28 years ago when he first got the job at Texas, I guess. And we were talking about recruiting, and goes, Bobby, the thing that I will always say is you don't focus on the ones you miss, because at most you will see them 4 days in the next 4 years. Okay. You're only going to play them 4 times. And if you miss them, you miss them. Focus on the ones that you get. Make sure they're good enough for your team, and make sure you're building them up as much as possible. you've been there. You've been a high-end recruit. You've actually seen how it works. How true is that statement from Mac, in your opinion? Is that something like, I mean, you saw some guys go elsewhere that could have went to Texas, yet y'all still went out and played pretty well and won more than your fair share of games. How true is that to folks to realize that, hey, there are a lot of good players to go around, and we just got to focus on who we get?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by a story, man. Like, one of the things, I had an event and everybody was all worried about people showing up for the event, right? Because we were launching it so late. And so, there are certain targets and ROIs you want to hit and things like that. And I simply said, listen, man, the people that are supposed to be here are going to be here. And we're going to do what we need to do with them and help them the best way that we can. And that is a philosophy that I get from Coach Brown. He's exactly right. Why would we worry about the people that don't want to be a part of what we're doing when you have so many people that do, right? It's a waste of mental space. And no disrespect to that kid, man. Listen, if A&M is the choice that you made, man, hey, I wish you well. But at the end of the day, when you come to Texas, it's all things Texas. And for the people that are in that locker room and the people that put their hand in the pile and want to put their face in the fan to bring a national championship to Texas, those are the ones that we're going to focus on. So, yeah, Coach is right. And honestly, a lot of times what you see is you might have a projection for a particular player and that player goes to a different place, and you come to find out that, the player that came here that you weren't really thinking about ends up being a better fit for your program. I'll give you a perfect example. You guys ever heard of Colt McCoy? Right? Like people weren't really checking for Colt, right? But at the same time, he came, he made the best of his opportunity, and then all of a sudden he becomes one of the greats at the University of Texas. So you have those type of situations that take place. So listen, you're not going to get them all. There's other schools, they have great programs, and for whatever reason, he made the decision that he made to go where he wanted to go.
Hey, so we're going to have you talk about the 3 offensive linemen from the state of Texas still on the board for the Longhorns right now. And the 4th guy is Malachi Lee out of state, but he doesn't have full senior huddle because he's just a baller and doesn't really care he just doesn't have the huddle to take together. But we're going to start with a guy that's visiting this weekend. And you've talked about him before, but it was months ago we had you do this. Yeah. So talk about John Turntine, your thoughts on John Turntine. This is, like I've said, this is coming down. I've always thought this would come down to an in-state battle. It's coming down to Texas versus Texas A&M. Kind of what are your thoughts on Turntine as a player right now in prospect?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the thing that jumps off of the tape obviously is going to be his extreme athleticism, right? I mean, this guy, he can move. He's almost when you talk about his movement ability, it reminds me a lot of Tyron Smith. Not to say that he has his strength or the pedigree that Tyron comes from. The guy, obviously, that guy was a freak of nature. But as it pertains to his knee bend, his flexibility, how he looks when he sits down on pass pro, his ability to come off the ball and strike with force and drive his feet, right? That's an athletic thing that you don't really see out of a lot of linemen, right? These guys are they're not a dime a dozen. Now, I will say this, though. One of the things that I know that he's going to have to do, obviously, he's going to have to put on a little size. I mean, listen, if you do come to Texas or if you go to A&M, right, we would love to have him here. You're playing in the SEC, so the competition is going to be a lot different. So the thing that he's going to have to work on, to me, is going to be his foot speed when it comes to faster pass rushers, right? Being able to mirror those guys, because he's not really seeing that type of competition of where he's playing. But all in all, man, and another thing too that I noticed when I was watching him too, Jerry, he needs to time up his punch a little better at times. Sometimes he lets people get into his body. If you let that happen with an SEC rusher, man, he's going to take you all the way back into the lap of the quarterback. So he has to work on those things. But I understand the intrigue with him. It's the athleticism. It's the ability to mold him. And then another thing too, man, this guy's a smart kid.
Yeah.
Extremely smart kid. Right?
He looks like he has some – so he plays with a little what I call intuition.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Like he sees it just a hair before, and then he gets his hands on somebody out in space.
Yes.
There's some value in that. I think, frankly, Kelvin Banks had a little of that. And I'm not comparing the two because they're very different linemen. I think
Yeah.
Banks was a more powerful lineman, and Turpine is more of a true left tackle type.
Yeah.
He plays with a little intuition. He
Yeah.
sees.
Yeah, no, Bob, you listen, that's a great comparison. And I understand what you're saying. And just to give some context, like when we throw out these names, we're not saying these individuals are going to be that type of individual. What we're saying is the characteristics and the traits of those people. Like for offensive linemen to be able to make contact with secondary players in space, that's not a common thing. Right? You can take all the angles that you want, but the reality is these guys running 4-3 do agility drills a lot more than we do in space, right? In that amount of space, right? So to be able to make contact with those guys, there's a play he did where when he comes out the gate, man, and kills the cornerback on a screen, right? On a wide receiver screen. Like that shows you the type of athleticism, and you get excited as an offensive line coach on the different things that you can do with that. Like with a guy like this, man, I would love to see them run some tackle traps because, he has the athletic ability to get up to the second level. So we can maneuver things. Usually linebackers look for guards to be able to tell them what their pulls are, right? Those are the keys. But it throws a linebacker off when I'm accustomed to looking at a guard to give me keys, whether he's pulling or if he's trapping or things of that nature. And all of a sudden there's a switch where the back block is coming from the guard and now the tackle is pulling. I'm not usually checking for that key. That creates an element of surprise that allows some big runs to happen. And those things can only happen when you have athletic tackles that can do those type of things. So, but I think the thing that shows up for me is the off the field. I read somewhere where he was thinking about becoming a neurosurgeon. So when you talk about,
he was runs number 2 overall in his class, number 2. He slipped like outside the top 5 now as he's got more football focused.
Well, this is why I'm going to tell you why that is important, because to your point, Bobby, he is looking at the game different because his brain looks at things differently.
Yeah.
And that matters. Like when you can, like some of the best players that I've played with, offensive linemen that I've played with, like for instance, I'll tell you another guy that was extremely smart. You guys might remember him from Boise State. You guys remember Ryan Clady?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely smart dude. And the way that he looked at the game and why he did certain things, like coaches would want him to do a particular thing, but he would do something opposite and it would work every time. And so I would ask him like, hey man, what are you seeing right here? He's like, all right, so go back 5 plays on the film. We go back 5 plays. He said, you see the safety rotation? Yeah. You see the cornerback on the left side on the boundary cheated over? Yeah. That's how I knew the linebacker was coming. I'm like, bro, what the? Bro, what? Bro, you're looking at alignment of corners but for guys like that, that's how they become great players. They just do something a little different than everybody else.
That's almost point guardish, seeing the way those guys see the game. It's almost point guardish. They're seeing 3 steps ahead. That's wild.
It's amazing to watch, Jerry. Amazing. Like my brain doesn't. I started trying to do those things, but that's not a natural thing for me. To see that be a natural thing for people like that, it's amazing to watch, man. I admire it.
Yeah. So a little bit on him, and then we're going to go to Felix Ojo, and then we'll end on Crimpin. A little more on turn time as we get through these conversations. I've talked to 2 college coaches about him. Like you guys know, I've been high on him since I went to see him as a sophomore. I think he's potentially just a next level player. I'm not worried about weight with him. That I don't worry about that. Kelvin Beachum started 10 years in the NFL at 6'3 and a half, 305 at tackle. What matters is, do you have tackle length? Do you have tackle feet? And do you have that reactive body quickness? And he's got it. All right, next guy, Felix Ojo, is out of Mansfield Lake Ridge, a guy that Texas has been doing very well with. He has 1 official visit left this weekend. Kind of your thoughts on Ojo?
Yeah, listen, powerful run blocker. This guy's a finisher. He has a pissed off disposition about him, which I love, right? Can definitely work a little bit on the pass protection. I'll say this: he needs to work on his lower body flexibility. Very stiff in the hips, very, very stiff in the hips. And the reason why that's a problem is because, and a lot of times in the run blocking aspect of things, you got to get underneath people, right? And in pass pro, when it comes to the bull rush, if you're not able to sit down properly, you're going to get walked back. It doesn't matter how strong you are. Great upper body strip, great finish. One of the things that I see with him from a positive note is that when he does get his hands on you, he's a sticky guy. It's a stick and stay, right? And so look, he has some shake to him. He can get out and about. I think, and I know people look at me crazy. I think that if you bring him in a situation, right, to where he's not going to be a player to where you want to plug and play him. He's going to be a developmental player. That's who he's going to be. And if he works on those things, he becomes somebody that can be a really good player. Kind of similar to what they did with Trevor Gooseby when they redshirted him and they got him, to where they needed to get him. And then now he had his opportunity and now he's going to be the guy. I see that same path if Felix comes to Texas. It's going to have to be something like that.
Tony, to your point, is he a bit of a – so he's a waist bender at times, which is that's not ideal.
No.
Is that the lack of hip flexibility? Is that what you have to get out of? Because sometimes guys, the taller guys who are 6'6", 6'7", they're waist benders in high school because everybody's that they're playing against is 5'10", 5'11". It creates a bad habit. Talk about being a waist bender, how that's got to change, how you get that out of your system as a lineman, because that's going to be a big thing for him.
Yeah, and it's about perspective too, Jerry, because at the end of the day, when you're playing a 5'10" guy, then work on the flexibility to get down to his level, right? So James Harrison, he's gonna kill me when he sees me when I tell this. But James Harrison is not
James Harrison on me. I'll tell you that much.
James Harrison is probably a 5'11" guy. I know if he sees this, he's gonna come after me, man. But he's probably a 5'11" guy. Like, I know they got him listed at like 6 foot or 6'1". But the thing is that as a taller person, you have to work on that flexibility. You have to be able to get underneath those guys. You're going to be playing against guys with all different types of body shapes and sizes. You cannot allow what the opponent is to deter you from where you need to be. So he can work on that. That's things where, that's stretching, that's different programs that they might even have at the school. That might be him getting some outside help. That I tell you, one sport that I love for offensive linemen is wrestling. I love jiu-jitsu for them. Any type of martial arts. I love Bikram yoga, anything that deals with banded flexibility work, like programs like that. There are things out here to be able to help you do that. And the reality is it's going to allow you to play longer too as a lineman. Like, the more flexibility that you have, and the more limber that you are, the less susceptible you are to injury. Right. So it's all for his good as it pertains to not just the health, but also for his play.
All right, that's Felix Ojo for those on podcast right now. Third and final guy we're going to talk about is Zayden Crimpin. Zayden Crimpin's very interesting to me, Tony, because he's a guy who wants to play tackle. We'll see if he long-term is a tackle or not. But you're kind of we've talked to you about Turntine and Ojo before. It's the first time we've had you take a look at Zayden Crimpin out of Prosper.
Yeah, he can play tackle. He's just not going to be on the left side. Yeah. This guy is a right tackle or interior player, period. He has some athleticism about him, but he doesn't have the foot speed to be able to deal with some of the more athletic pass rushers that you see at the next level. Now, I'll tell you this: I know that he has some decent flexibility about him. And I know that he has some great upper body strength. And the reason why I know that is because he's in track and field. Yeah. And he's really good at the shot put and discus. One of the players that I played with that was also really good at shot put and discus was Brian Robertson. And Brian Robertson has some of the greatest flexibility that I ever seen. He was doing some of those Von Miller moves at 265, pounds and 6'4", ducking underneath people where you couldn't even get your hands on his on the shoulder pads. And so, this guy, he screams interior to me. If he has aspirations of playing tackle, he's going to play right tackle. He's going to get after it. He plays with the right attitude that you need from the lineman. When he gets his hands on you, you're going north or you're going south. There's no you don't get to dictate which way it goes, right? And the thing is that as soon as he makes contact, then the pass rush or the run or the trying to hold point at the run spot is over. you're moving. He moves guys out of there, which is the reason why I actually see him fitting better as an interior lineman to be able to do that on a consistent basis. And having the athleticism to pull around and get to the next level, get to the linebackers as well. I believe he would be able to do that. But at the next level, I truly see him being either a interior player or maybe getting a shot at right tackle.
And that's why we bring Tony on the best.
Yeah, Tony, appreciate you, man. What do you got planned for this week? Give us a little taste of what's going on in Tony Hill's life before we let you go here.
Man, cigars and bourbon. Yeah, absolutely. I got some cool things, man. We're building some programs out for some entrepreneurs, athlete entrepreneurs, looking to continue to build out those programs to help these guys to understand they have a tremendous jumpstart economically if they do it right. And so we're wanting to get the information into their hands and let them know how they can build and what they need to build in order to create that financial success that they're looking for, right? So that their 22 and 23-year-old selves will appreciate the moves that their 19 and 20-year-old selves made.
I got a suggestion for Tony because I know his son's a hooper.
Oh, yeah.
Down the street from you this week over at Duncanville High is the TABC. It's the live period for high school basketball where all the top high school basketball teams, not AAU as a team, come together and play in front of about 200 college coaches. That's at Duncanville Friday, Saturday, Sunday if you want to take your son to see the best hoops in the state of Texas and see all the college coaches for motivational purposes down the line.
Man, text me some info on that. I just wrote it down, but absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're doing now. See that? That's why, listen, guys, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, man. I know some guys. Your
son will love that. Just walking around, seeing the college coaches, and then watching all the top high school basketball players in the state play if you got time.
Absolutely. We're going to make time, baby.
Take care of yourself,
baby.
Hook up, Tony. Thank you very much, buddy.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Tony.
As always. Jerry, when you said TABC, I got to be honest. I was thinking the Texas Alcoholic Beverage.
I know.
That's the TABC I was somehow familiar with.
Yeah, that is for those that don't know, that's Texas Association of Basketball Coaches. And a few years ago, they came together and allowed for one weekend where as high school teams, not AAU teams, they could play together in front of college coaches in a live period. And I think it's one of the best decisions the state has made for high school athletics because every college coach, if you're in the DFW area and you love high school basketball, Austin Gooseby will be playing there. We got a basketball question I'm leading into with this. Gooseby's going to be playing with Melissa. Bo Ogden has transferred to Austin Westlake, and I'm going to get to this in a second. He's playing. Reese Alston, all the guys Texas has offered in state will all be playing at this, and every other kid that's got a lot of D1 offers. They'll be playing with their high school team. So if you're in DFW this weekend and you're a high school basketball junkie, it is the best event. It's become the best event in high school basketball in the state of Texas. Better, in my opinion, better than the state tournament, better than any AAU tournament, because you can literally go sit in Duncanville High School at Court 1 on a Saturday or a Friday evening or a Saturday. Sean Miller and the staff will be there. Everybody's going to be there watching all the best high school basketball prospects in the state play with their high school teams, which is such a refreshing change from AAU basketball, in my opinion. And I think it's a great, great event. On that can you bring that basketball question up again real quick? And I'll Beckham Black, younger brother of Anthony Black, he was at Duncanville last year. He's now at Southeastern Prep in Orlando. His stepfather now, David Peavy, the head coach at Duncanville, took that job. And obviously his brother Anthony Black plays for Orlando Magic. So he's out of state now. Reese Alston, that skipped to my loose son, Rafer Alston, for those that remember. He's been offered by a lot of people, tremendous prospect. Bo Ogden has announced publicly now we've known about this for a few weeks, his transfer to Austin Westlake, which I think is great for him. I mean, nothing against Austin St. Michael's, they won state, but he needs to test him. I think he wants to test himself on a day-to-day basis as a senior in games, because you may have one game a week where you're tested at the private school level. Now he gets to be tested. They'll play a great schedule, but Bo Ogden has transferred to Austin Westlake. One other basketball note, Duke offered Austin Gooseby yesterday. Congrats to Austin Gooseby. I've said before, I think he'll be a McDonald's All-American. Congrats to Austin on the Duke offer. I think Texas is in a good spot there. They'll do OVs in September, but that's good to have competition, and that's the competition you want.
Guys, we're going to get to some questions, more questions, I guess I should say, here momentarily. But first, Bobby, tell everyone about Omaha Steaks.
Absolutely can do it. July 4th coming up, guys. That means grilling and chilling out on the back patio or wherever you might have your steaks. Look, it's the peak of summer. 4th of July cookouts are a tradition. And from handcrafted steaks to family grilling favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience for all of your 4th of July grilling plans. Enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and so much, much more. During their 4th of July sale, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners here at On Texas Football get an extra $45 off with a promo code ONTexas at checkout. This is an unprecedented offer. Again, omahasteaks.com. Use promo code ONTexas at checkout. They've got a 50% off site-wide sale, and then you can get an extra $45 off with the promo code ONTexas at checkout. It's a convenient way to get high-quality steaks and have them on hand. I told you all this before, not only do I like the fillets and the ribeyes, but also and the sirloin, I also like the brisket burger. Those were just absolutely great. They were good for the kiddos. Here's the reality. Get fired up for 4th of July in Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com. 50% off, $45 off if you use promo code ONTexas at checkout. That's 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com and get an extra $45 off with promo code ONTexas at checkout. See site for more details.
And Jerry, if you tell everyone about Ridge Wallets.
I can definitely do that. Ridge Wallet is one of the best products that we have here at On Texas Football. It's a must get for everybody. Here's the thing. Want that giant crusty leather brick that was falling apart in your back pocket that made George Costanza hurt? You don't want that anymore. You don't want your back to hurt. It's a unique, slim, modern design that holds up to 12 cards plus cash. Wives of On Texas Football love that. Made with premium materials like aluminum, titanium, and carbon fiber. Over 50 colors to choose from. So you pick your color. Burnt orange, is that one of them? All Ridge products have a lifetime warranty. That's literally the last wallet you'll ever have to buy. Does it give you peace of mind knowing that Ridge wallets have RFID blocking technology? It should. It keeps your pocket safe from digital pickpocketers. Over 100,000 5-star reviews. That would be up to 1 million in a few years. Losing your wallet's the worst. But with Ridge, the Ridge AirTag attachment, you'll always know exactly where it is before panic mode kicks in. Ridge isn't just about wallets. They create premium everyday carry essentials like cases, suitcase, and rings, all built with the same sleek, durable design. For a limited time, our listeners are getting 10% off at Ridge by using code ONTexas, all caps, at checkout. Just head to ridge.com and use ONTexas, all caps, and you're all set. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please just tell them the best show around on Texas Football.
I was looking for a burnt orange, but
oh yeah,
that's about as close. They're tobacco color, almost there. So, but they have plenty of options.
Anybody that gets a Ridge wallet will get Tony Hills to sign it.
Oh man, good stuff.
All right, let's I was going to say one of us, but we don't want sales to decrease. We want sales to increase.
Also, Phil said the OTF code for Gooders saved him $20.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Got my Bebo Gooders in on Monday. I actually have a couple of pair that are supposed to be delivered this week as well. So,
I'm going to answer this one. Diabell on a video. A special commit. I think people are reading too much into that. I'll say that. I think a commitment, yes.
Super chats this morning, gentlemen. We're going to start here with Juan. Thank you, Juan. He says, okay, Jerry, is this defensive line recruiting that happened last year? Are they missing Tashard Choice? And What's up with defensive line recruiting?
Yeah, look, I don't put anything on a coach in a situation like this. I don't think that has anything to do with it. Now, I will say though, when you come in, same thing happened with Kenny Baker, and you don't have those relationships with guys. Did that set Texas back with Javian Osborne early? Probably, right? Then you have to go in and you have to build relationships. So I do think there's some of that going on. Do I think anybody committed elsewhere just because Tashard Choice is not the coach here? No, I do not.
I think that this
Game played at a different level now.
Yeah, and I want to add this real quick because there's another chat going on that's part of this and kind of rolls into it. R. Charnell says, what are we hearing about Chad Scott, the new Texas running back coach? Early returns on the trail aren't positive. Here's what I would say. Were they positive last year around this time with Kenny Baker? They weren't. Okay. What do you think of Kenny Baker today, though? Give him time. 3 or 4 months ain't enough a lot of times. So I'm not saying that, and I'm also not saying Chad Scott's going to be as good or better than Kenny Baker. But it's really soon to be trying to judge someone who hasn't had a full year wearing a Longhorn polo as a coach. Just my opinion. So I would wait. I would wait to pass judgment on that one. I am waiting.
Our next super chat comes from Blake this morning, and Blake says, how often do other schools negative recruit the city of Austin, especially when it comes to small town kids?
I don't think they negative recruit, Bobby. I just think it's, if you know the kids you're recruiting, you kind of say, here's what we have, knowing they certain kids may like that better.
No, it's Sodom and Gomorrah over in Austin.
Well,
yeah. Let's be. I mean, RC Slocum. No, I mean I love RC, but
over Leonard
they not
Davis.
say anything bad about the University of Texas, but Austin, that's a different story. I think that I just disagree with that, Jerry. They absolutely, especially the college stations of the world. SMU's not saying anything bad about Austin, but Oklahoma, you tell me they're not trying to say something bad about. That's not true. I mean, we're wholesome apple pie over here in these small towns, some of which can be true. I mean, small towns can be better than big towns. I'm not saying that, but I absolutely believe it doesn't hit home necessarily with kids, but for some it might.
Yeah, I think, I don't think guys outwardly come out, though, and say, you shouldn't go there because of this. Because that goes back to the recruiting philosophies. If you're trying to tell a kid not where to go, that normally backfires on you. Right? But the R.C. Slocum comment when he lost Leonard Davis to this day is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in recruiting. When he called Austin Sodom and Gomorrah because he had Leonard Davis committed for 2 years. And then Leonard made a visit to Austin and saw what the world had outside of Wortham and said, I think I'll go there.
I'm just telling you, I mean, they use it and they may not be, to Jerry's point, they may not be obvious or try to be obvious, but they absolutely try to do that, So I'm not, Austin is a bigger draw than it is a
hindrance. Yes.
Hindrance on Texas.
Yeah, that's the thing I would say too. If part of your recruiting pitch is don't go to big cities, you're sitting there recruiting against USC, Texas, Miami. I mean, Georgia's an hour from Athens, right? I mean, that's a losing battle.
That's not
here's the other thing I would say. We need to get Nick Saban on the show. Bobby, can you get that done? I doubt Nick Saban ever said, don't go to Texas because of Austin. He said, I'm just going to kick their ass. Just come here and develop.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Some people have the, what's to say that, but I'm telling you, some use it against them.
All right, our next...
Hey, by the way, LSU gets it used against them a little bit too with Baton Rouge. You don't want to go there. So there are certain schools that have a little bit of that get caught on them. But if you don't think Fayetteville, Arkansas isn't going to try to use that, or Norman, Oklahoma, or Waco, they will.
Rhett,
a little news on the wire right now, which I'm confirming is that Tyler Atkinson is going to OV to Texas this week, and I don't think they're going to get him, but
wow,
that's that's how fast recruiting changes, because him and Texas kind of said it wasn't going to happen. Atkinson's people in Texas a week and a half ago when people were asking. But now it looks like he may OV to Texas. We'll see.
There you go.
Wow. Well, another Georgia linebacker.
Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, Oregon are your four. I think Georgia obviously is leader in the clubhouse. What does that mean now? He went out to Oregon. I think Clemson is very much in it. Family's from North Carolina. They moved to the Atlanta area. Not that is why you go to Clemson, but just something to note there. But how much – that's where stuff doesn't matter as much anymore, because here's the thing. Like Xavier Griffin, some people may or may not know this, he's from Tuscaloosa. Doesn't mean he wants to go to college in Tuscaloosa, but that's obviously part of Alabama's angle with Xavier Griffin.
All right, our next super chat warning comes from Rhett. Thank you, Rhett. He says, Deloitte being the entrusted decider of market value leaves me uneasy. For example, paying Johnny Manziel several $million out of high school would have paid off. It's speculative, but it would have paid off.
I agree. That's what I'm trying to say. How can you determine someone's fair market value? If you're gambling on this is what I want to do, I don't know how anybody can tell you can't do it. I agree with that. But at the same time, I will say this: they're trying to make this the rule of law. I don't know what's going to happen. I really, really don't. But I think that as of right now, a Johnny Manziel $3 million deal coming out of high school would be ultimately rejected by Deloitte, and therefore I have 100% belief that they would get a lawsuit against them, because if I'm Johnny Manziel and somebody wants to give me $3 million, I'm going to be allowed to take that $3 million. So we'll see what all that means, but that's my opinion.
So we're going to replay Tyler Atkinson's huddle here. So I'm going to get this up. There's a question on that I'm going to answer. Was Texas no longer? Yes, Texas canceled Tico Crittenden's visit. That mean they didn't think he was a really good player, but they did cancel his official visit. As we bring up Tyler Atkinson's huddle here, just a dude says, do you see athletic limits in Tyler Atkinson? I do not. I think the guy's a tremendous football player, and I think he has a chance to be an elite college player and a guy that plays football for a long time. I don't see athletic limits with Tyler Atkins. I've seen him. Look at that. I mean, that's not athletic limits to me. No, I do not. I think he's going to be 6'2", 230, 235-pound linebacker, and he's going to be a terrific football player and a future draft pick if he stays healthy. It's all about health and continuing to develop, but he's got length. He's got closing speed. He has got playmaking ability. He's got physicality, and he's got frame for growth. I think he's tremendous. And by the way, the state of Georgia has tremendous linebacker prospects. And this gets into another question or topic. There's been a lot of topic about Xavier Griffin. Is he an edge? Is he a linebacker? Here's what I would tell people on that, because I think people kind of speculate on it. Xavier Griffin weighs 203 pounds right now. Okay, that's a long way from playing off the edge in the SEC. He is a linebacker first that can rush the passer. And that's what I'd say about Xavier Griffin. He's a long frame guy, like almost 6'4", but he is about 202, 203 right now. So there's development there. He is a linebacker that will be really good pass rusher off the edge.
Let me ask you this, Jerry. Best pass rusher outside of Colin Simmons that you've seen at the University of Texas? Is it Brian Arakpo? Is it Brian Robinson?
And Arakpo was 200 pounds coming out of high school. Different day and age. He wouldn't have been today. Yeah.
No, but he was 195 when I saw him as a high school junior.
Yep.
I'm not, when you talk about edge guys, they grow up over time.
Yeah.
We saw Barron. What did Barron Sorrell end at Texas? What was his height at his weight?
260, probably 225, 230 when he came in.
He was 215 coming out of high school.
Yeah.
Those guys that are long,
256. 256 at the draft.
256. Yeah. He gained 40 pounds.
Yeah.
You telling me Xavier Griffin couldn't if he wanted to? I mean, those guys that have those long, lean muscles, they can put up weight over time if they want to.
By the way, this is going to lead us into something really cool. Blake, ESPN put out an article this morning that I thought was awesome for the chat in conversation. Bobby, they put out 10 unbreakable records in college football.
I saw that.
And Blake made this into a kind of a graph for us, and I think it's awesome. So for the chat, so ESPN is a story that 10 unbreakable records in college football. And I love things like this if you're a college football junkie enthusiast. Oklahoma 47-game winning streak. I think in the modern day of college, nobody's touching that. Barry Sanders 1988 season. Like everybody talked about Ashton Jeanty last year. Think about rushing for 2,628 yards in 11 games in the Big Eight.
That's crazy.
In the Big Eight, averaged 239 rushing yards per game. Bowl games didn't count to career stats during that time. So he would add 2,850 yards in 12 games, 4 300-yard games, and 43 touchdowns in 12. That's the best season in college football history, easily. Florida State's top 5 streak, 14 consecutive seasons. In the modern day of college football is probably not going to be broken. You have John Reeves one is crazy.
I love it.
He threw 9, and he's a former college coach. He threw 9 interceptions in a loss to Auburn, Bobby. 9.
That's crazy.
I used to talk to John, Jerry. I don't know if you know this or not, but John he was a backup quarterback for the Oilers back in the day. He recruited Houston for the University of Florida. And so when I was, and also a little bit of Austin. So when he was in town, I would go talk to him and hang out with him. He stayed at the Marriott down by the Med Center in Houston. And so we'd go have coffee early in the morning before he went out and saw people. He was a great person to talk to. Rest in peace for John. But look, 9 interceptions. You think he might get pulled.
Oh, wow.
You think he might get pulled in a game nowadays? The funny line, did you read the last line of that whole thing? He later joked that the safeties were the only open receivers.
Hey, by the way,
you know nine interceptions. The safeties are definitely open, John.
By the way, who did he follow? Who was the quarterback before him at Florida?
Yeah, Spurrier. I think
Spurrier, Heisman Trophy winner. Boy, tough act to follow.
Yeah. They were both.
If you have, for the fans in the chat, just go search Barry Sanders college stats. If you haven't gone to look at that season, statistically, it's the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in college football. It's just Derek Thomas is a great one, Bobby. 27 sacks at Alabama that season. Now, it wasn't tabulated by the NCAA. Terrell Suggs, we're bringing this up, Colin Simmons, if you're watching. Here's your guys. 24 sacks is Terrell Suggs in 2002 at ASU. No FBS players reached 20 sacks in a season in the past 20 years. FY. 2003, boy, this is against UCLA, but this is still bad memories. Antonio Perkins, 3 punt returns. Oof. Patrick Mahomes against Oklahoma was unbelievable in that game. For those that don't remember that. That's a record that will be hard to break.
I got to say this as well. John Reeves' daughter was married to Lane Kiffin.
That's true. That's right.
I don't know if y'all remember that or not, too. But anyways, yeah, a lot of going around. Marcus Allen, do y'all realize this? Marcus Allen at USC was recruited to USC as a safety by John Robinson. He only was moved to running back because they couldn't find a place for him to get on the field because the two safeties at USC at that time were Ronnie Lott and Dennis Smith. So not a bad move by making Marcus Allen move to running back.
So for those that don't know, I mean, like that Barry Sanders season, he was 300 plus with Tulsa, but 300 plus against K-State, Kansas, and Texas Tech in Tokyo. They played in Tokyo, by the way. But he was also at that time still returning kickoffs from time to time. And he was a backup running back to Thurman Thomas at Oak State.
Yes.
You think they had some good backs at that time?
Yeah, that's Thurman Thomas once said his biggest achievement in his career was keeping Barry Sanders on the bench.
Yeah,
for a year. I remember watching that game in Tokyo, thinking why. And I mean, it's a long time ago, but I wasn't there. I was watching on TV. Like why? And Barry Sanders looked like he was the only one awake. By the way, everybody looked like they were sleepy.
All right. Let's see here. Jay Lee with the super chat says Story and Dave Campbell describe Sark as tough, hard-nosed, no nonsense coach. But that's not how I really perceive Sark. What do you all think?
I think that's a great question. And because he is SoCal, laid back guy most of the time. But I don't think you can accomplish without having the tough, hard-nosed, burning desire on the inside. And look, there was one of the great Texas high school basketball coaches of all time, Andre Butte, once told me this. He said, I've never raised my voice to a kid in a game. And I'm not saying Sark hasn't got mad. He has. It's college football. But he said, but in practice and in off season, these guys know who I am and why we win. I think there's some of that might apply to Steve Sarkisian.
I would say hard-nosed, tough. I don't know. No nonsense when it gets on the football field. From visiting a few the practices that I've been there for, I would absolutely say no nonsense applies. I mean, absolutely. He's not he's about getting after it when practice starts. But I can't personally attest to the tough, hard-nosed part. I can absolutely attest to the no nonsense. I mean, when it's time to get to work, he's about work. That's my opinion.
All right, Bobby, before we get to our last few super chats and questions of the day, could you tell everyone about Adam Lowy one last time?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to Adam Lowy, a lawyer at loweylawfirm.com. He's been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years now. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind and think you might be due compensation, reach out to Adam and his firm. They'll give you a free, no strings attached consultation to see whether or not they think you might be due compensation. Again, that's Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. Adam, thank you so much for your ongoing sponsorship of On Texas Football. Again, that's loweylawfirm.com.
Okay, and then our next question this morning comes once again from Blake. Thank you again, Blake. And he says, simple question. 3 best high school prospects you've ever seen?
Mine are pretty easy. I've said this before. VY, Adrian Peterson, and Jadeveon Clowney in football were mine in my career doing this.
Bobby?
This is really hard for me.
It's tough.
Peyton Manning was the first one that, for me, it just had, I'm just telling you, saw him in person in high school, and I was like, I just couldn't believe that. Like, at that time, Texas was not producing great quarterbacks in the early 90s. So when I was watching film for UT or for University of Houston or whatever, we weren't finding quarterbacks. You didn't find them. And when I went and saw Peyton Manning, I was like, holy cow. I mean, he throws everything right where you want it to be thrown. It was like no offense to Peyton, but he looks robotic sometimes. That's how he looked in high school too. I thought that he was probably the most impressive guy in that regard. Vince Young would be one. And then mine is going to be a different player, and that's Anquan Bolden out of Pahokee in Florida. I don't know if y'all remember him or not, but played in the NFL. He played high school quarterback.
Yeah.
And he was very Vince Young-like. Like, he was like a lot of people remember, what was Jackson that played at Arkansas that played at Duncanville? Good player and really led his team. Anquan Bolden was a better version of that.
Yeah.
Slippier. I mean, he was a tremendous, tremendous high school quarterback.
I would say this too. Somebody asked about Casey Hampton. He's not in that top 3. Fair or not, and I've told Bobby this, and I don't think it's fair to some kids. I judge every interior defensive lineman against Casey Hampton, seeing him in high school, because Casey Hampton has the best motor. It's one thing to be as talented as he was. He had the best motor of any high interior defensive lineman I've ever seen in my life to this day. So I do always go back and take a look. I judge guys against him because that guy's motor was simply unmatched. Somebody asked other sports. This kind of got into it yesterday. So if I take all sports combined, actually none of my top guys are football, because I've just lived in this age when I saw LeBron James in high school, and I saw Kevin Durant in high school, and I actually saw Kobe Bryant in high school. That kind of changed. And I saw Shaq at the state tournament in '89, but I was a youngster. But that takes you to a little bit different level. So just covering football and basketball, y'all got my football answer. But I said this the other day when somebody asked, it's the best high school anything I've ever seen was LeBron James. He was just, and I'm not saying anything to do with pro. I've just never seen anybody that was that height and that weight, that had that explosivity and that kind of physicality, and had instincts for the sport they were really good at. He was just, as a high school guy, people aren't supposed to look like that. That's not supposed to happen. Now, I'll say this. I didn't see Bo Jackson in high school, Bobby. We didn't see Deion. Like the legend about Deion Sanders is he actually got his nickname Primetime from basketball. Basketball's like his 4th best sport. He was a 2-sport pro guy who probably would have been a pro in track. Somebody brought up Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's the best 2-sport star the state of Texas has produced. He's still the only guy that's ever gone top 10 in 2 different sports in a draft. Football 1, baseball 8. Nobody's ever done that again. Somebody may one day, but nobody has yet. Nobody did before. That is pretty special stuff. Woodcrest, did I see KD in high school? I saw KD for the first time, Kevin Durant, in New Orleans in an AAU tournament going into his junior year. Russ Springman was the assistant at Texas, who was from that area in Maryland, who had the connections to him and sent me down to watch this guy. He said, he's unbelievable. And so I drove down to New Orleans, never seen, at the time he was 6'9", a 6'9" guy shoot the basketball like that. I didn't see Larry Bird in high school, but Kevin Durant, you could tell the first time you saw him, if he loved the game, and he's proven to love the game, that he'd be a top, whatever he is, 10, 15, whatever you want to call it, player of all time. The guys his footwork was impeccable, and that guy could absolutely shoot the basketball. And the thing about being great, he was the first guy his year in Texas. He was the first guy in the gym and the last guy to leave every single day. Another one I didn't see, Bobby, you may have, Allen Iverson. I didn't see him in high school. Allen Iverson, unbelievable talent.
Just saw highlight tape. Look, the thing that I would say about the guys that I mentioned, like I've seen, Cedric Benson was phenomenal in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just the most complete running back I ever saw in high school, by far. I mean, just unbelievable. But the thing that I would say that I mentioned those three that made them different for me is they had juice. And I'm not saying the other guys didn't, like Casey Hampton. So, I mean, a lot of great players in the world, but you're asking the top three. And that's what when I walked out of watching those guys in person, it was the holy S moment. I had a holy moment, where I went, oh, wow, I just saw something. I saw highlights of Randy Moss in high school, so I didn't see him in person. So I'm only talking about people I saw in person.
Yeah.
And those are the three for me.
Yeah. What about Julius Peppers?
Didn't see him in person. I saw a highlight. I mean, I actually saw game film. They sent us game film of him. He's from like Goldsboro, North Carolina, or something like that. And he played tight end as much as he played defensive end in high school. And he reminded me. I'm trying to think of who he reminded me of. He reminded me of like a better Darnell Washington as a tight end, the Georgia tight end that just went in the first round of the Steelers as a blocker. He was a better, similar size, better athlete. That's who he reminded me of.
And then we got a pair of super chats regarding running back recruiting. And Justin Yarborough, thank you for your super chat. We'll start with this one. Do y'all think the staff will look at Jet Walker as a possible number 2 back? I know he's not ranked very high, but I think he'd be a solid number 2 in most classes.
Yeah, we'll have to see on that. I think I'd be a little surprised on that, but we'll see. He's committed to West Virginia, I believe.
And then
I need to follow up real quick. Roll left. I did see Michael Beasley. I didn't think he was in the league with KD. I mean, he's a really talented player, but mentality, no chance.
And then our other super chat regarding running back recruiting from Jose. It says, hypothetically, we only get one running back, whoever it may be. If that happens, does Michael Terry switch to running back? If I remember correctly, he played a lot of running back in high school.
I don't think that's what Michael Terry wants to be. I've said before, could he be a goal line guy? Could he be a gadget running back at times? He has played the position. He does bring size. But I think in an ideal world, you want Cedric Baxter to get back on the field, and you don't have to have these discussions.
I'm of the opinion that Michael Terry is a wide receiver until he's not. I will say this: he needs to decide. They need to decide this year on that. He cannot go into next season saying, "Oh, well, maybe I'll switch positions then." His clock has started. So if he's not going to make it at wide receiver, he's too good an athlete not to try him somewhere else. And I don't know where that might be. Linebacker, running back, flex, tight end. I don't know. But I worry about guys like Michael Terry because they're tweeners. And some guys need some time to move positions and be something. It's not just add water, instant player. And so if he's not going to make it at receiver, and we have no reason to say he will or won't at this point, frankly, then they need to get to moving him to where they think he can, because otherwise it's going to be a missed opportunity. That's what I worry about with tweeners or guys that play. You got to find them a spot early, and if they take to it, then great. If not, go find them another spot quickly, so they don't lose time.
And we opened talking about running back, so we'll close on that. A lot of people have actually asked this question today, such as Blake Bryant here. Maybe portal over high school this year for running back? And just a dude just says the same thing. Do we see a portal move for running back? What's y'all's thoughts?
Too early. Way too early on that. Look, I had somebody in the circle of a top prospect yesterday tell me that when these kids commit in July, it's still 6 months to signing day. And that just every time you hear that kind of sticks with you, right? Until December. By the way, I still think we're in the future, we're going to have a June or late June or early July signing period coming. But as more changes happen, I'm going to stay on record with that. But 6 months till signing day. That's the one thing I'll say. We've seen Sark before. Everybody knows Sark. They don't give up on A1 guys. There will be battles during the season
that we won't necessarily be party to until they bubbles to the top, by the way, or bubbles to the surface. But look, everybody, I'm just telling you, Sark is he's a slow burn guy, man, when it comes to recruiting. He's not all about this, got to have everything done tomorrow. So, yeah.
Ooh, we got to end with Ahmed's question. Who's the biggest could have been? Ooh. Oh, I thought he meant all time. He just meant at Texas. Okay. Is that Mark? That's pretty easy, right, Bobby?
Marcus Webb for me at Texas.
What about old school running backs at Texas, though?
Edwin Simmons would be the one that, like,
most Texas fans would say.
Yeah, they would say Edwin Simmons. For those unaware, he's early 80s at Texas, had a breakout game against OU, and then messed his knee up and had some other issues. Ramonce Taylor would be a big one. Jamarcus Webb for me, though.
He was talented.
Right? How many years did he play in the NFL? 8 years?
Yeah.
Played 1 year.
Out of D2, by the way. Out of D2 after he got in trouble.
Butch Hadnot would have been one. But Butch actually played a couple years. He didn't develop for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Adoree McCullough is a tremendous prospect. There's some good ones. And not everybody's perfect. You don't everybody doesn't develop. That's one of the things. That's one of the reasons why we follow this.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you take a recruiting class of 25, I've said this before multiple times. You take a recruiting class of 25, you're hopeful that 12 to 14 contribute to your team in a meaningful way. Okay? If 12 to 14 out of 25 contribute to your team in a meaningful way, it has been a good recruiting class so long as you're still a top 5, top 10 ranked team. Now, if you're below top 10, 15, and you're at Texas, that's a poor recruiting class, even if 12 to 14 do contribute. So it's all a stat play at some level. But I also think when you start getting into the rarefied air where Texas is at, it becomes a little bit different in that it's about the elite players that you get. And I mean truly elites. The Arch Mannings, the Kelvin Banks, the Colin Simmons, the Anthony Hills, those kind of dudes. That's maybe what separates a winning program at a high level and a national champion. Like how much was Jeremiah Smith and Travion Henderson, Keyshawn Judkins, that defensive line from Ohio State? Like how much were? That's my opinion.
And I've always thrown one out in the Houston area as we walk out of here. One of the most talented guys I've still to this day I've ever seen that didn't make it was Ben Gay at Spring.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Gay at Spring, RIP. I think he passed away last year.
Yeah.
Was one of the true freaks the city of Houston ever put out. He was an amazing talent. He was so good he never played a college game. Still, I think I had 100 yards rushing in a Browns preseason game, but there was just no way it was going to work out. But an insane talent.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. We want to thank Adam along with Omaha Steaks and Ridge Wallet for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well for the questions, the super chats. Don't forget, you can head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Become a member today. Use promo code OTFOG when you sign up, and you can get a full year for just $39.95. That's for new members only. Again, promo code OTFOG, but get your questions answered over there. Join in on the community. A ton of good stuff always being posted over there for sure. And then, Bobby, what do you have later?
Well, today's Wednesday. We have State of the Program coming up. Myself, Jerry, and CJ going to sit down, talk about what all this recruiting stuff means for the Longhorns. We also have news and notes being dropped, every minute. We just talked about the Tyler Atkinson official visit that's coming up for this weekend now. The linebacker out of Georgia being added to the list late here. There may be other visits being scheduled and dropped. We'll have that for you. Just come, more than anything, we want you guys to come visit us on the message board and become an OTF OG. Visit with us, talk with us on the message board, have a conversation with fellow Longhorns. You can do that right now. It's a special offer, $39.95 annual subscription. If you use the promo code OTFOG, that's OTFOG on TexasFootball.com.
And from a basketball perspective, just an update. Jeff Howe and I are going to do an On Texas Basketball Show update recruiting and team stuff. We're going to have Mike Kabongo as a special guest on that show. So former Texas 5-star point guard recruit. Talk about what he's up to these days.
Good stuff. All right, well, we will be back tomorrow morning. Hope you all have a great day. And for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.